Most businesses never make it to seven figures, not because they lack ambition, but because they lack leverage. This is the 789 Show, where we break down how founders scale from 7 to 8 to 9 figures in revenue. I'm Makishi, and in each episode, we go inside the decisions, systems, and strategies that actually drive growth from operators who are doing it in real time. No fluff, no theory, just what works. Let's dive into it.
Jeffrey Bowman, founder, CEO of Reframe. We are a different type of growth agency. And the reason we say we're different is because of our focus around what some people call TAM, a total addressable market. Been in business now for about 10 years, primarily service Fortune 500 companies, growth acceleration, change, go-to-market is really where our core focus has been.
And can you share a bit more about your role as founder and CEO and how it fits into the bigger picture at your company?
Yeah, no, great question. Prior to starting Reframe, I spent about nearly 20 years, in roles with Pepsi, Procter & Gamble, Miller Brewing Company, Miller Coors, Molson Coors is called today. But that's pretty much in terms of my brand and ops background. Pivoted over to Whirlpool, got out of the food and beverage business and in the manufacturing durable goods. And that's when I really began my core around corporate strategy, then went to tech at Dell, where uncovered econometric modeling, and then got in the transformation business at Sears. Was that not enough in terms of career progression? Second chapter of my journey was at Ogilvy, and at Ogilvy, I had the pleasure of co-founding Ogilvy Culture, which is the industry's first cultural practice. Really important because we look at the first chapter of my career in ARC. It was really about helping fairly mature businesses grow at 3 to 5%. Whereas, given the changing demographics, culture as a whole became one of their centerpieces as it relates to growth through insights, and a lot of that has to do with digitalization. How you're able to mine users' attitudes, behaviors, and beliefs. And so that really helped uncover an opportunity within the marketplace. I left Ogilvy in 2015 after seeing this significant opportunity with big brands. And that's why we started Reframe, to help brands accelerate growth.
That's amazing. Jeffrey, what does a typical day look like for you as CEO of Reframe?
Look, every day, as a founder, and I'm sure a lot of your founders can identify with this, every day is really about, how do we drive revenue and impact? And so, first thing I do every morning is look at my pipeline, especially when you have a high growth business. You want to continue on that growth trajectory. The second thing I do is really focus on, reading what's happening in the world, thinking about what opportunities exist for us to make impact, given what we do. And the back half of the morning really is about how do I reach out to customers. I usually reserve 2 to 3 days a week for prospecting, because that's really around how do you keep business going over 10 years, and that's growth.
What major shifts are you seeing in your industry right now?
That's a great question. I think the theme for everyone is artificial intelligence, but I want to step back and pull back a little bit. I look at this time period right around, 1999, everybody was saying, the internet's gonna, take jobs. The internet's gonna, impact businesses in terms of brands and businesses are gonna think about growth. And so the thing that we're really hyper focused on is transformation. I think for, the idea of artificial intelligence and automation, not every brand or business is on the same maturity path. And what do we mean by that? In order to, automate your business, you need workflows. In order to automate the workflows, you need insights. Insights historically have been metrics that, come from an analog world. What we're finding an opportunity is around attitude and behavior-based outcome. So, if you're not getting addressable data as it relates to attitudes and behaviors of your customers, for instance, you're probably what we call stage 1, stage 2 in terms of maturity from a transformation standpoint. So that's one key theme.
How has AI impacted your specific business or growth strategy? Right?
Look, as I mentioned before, myself and a team of others developed the first cultural practice within the $1 trillion marketing communications industry. The data set that they typically operate from is either secondary or third party data. And so when you think about artificial intelligence and the way that we're helping our customers think about, future forward growth, how do you use those tools to get first party data? And so when you hear synthetic data sets, you hear scraping, that's not good for a brand. And so what we're helping them think about is how do you first start with user and customer insights? How do you get closer to the customer from a first party data set? What the brand and business that has first party data the most is going to win. And so, I think a lot of people look at artificial intelligence as a way of making them smarter. But I would argue that in really getting them to invest and continue to build relationships with their customers. And so we typically use artificial intelligence as a migration path, not as an end state. And how do you get there quicker in terms of getting to that first party data set as a whole? And that's, you think about all the information that's coming out there, as it relates to artificial intelligence. But at the end of the day, this is an opportunity for brands to go back to having a direct relationship with their customers.
What's working well for you right now in 2026 in terms of growing your business?
Yeah, I will say, I would be remiss if I said that I think last year was difficult for a lot of businesses, a lot of founders. One of the things that I was intentional, and this may not be the classic canned answer, what's working well for me this year in terms of helping me grow my business is building relationships within a community and the ecosystem. I think as founders, sometimes we can build our own echo chamber. And so what I've been intentional in doing is going out, meeting with other people in the biz, going out with meeting, people. And I challenge every founder to go back and look at this. Is I went back all the way, looked at revenue for the last 10 years. And out of the last 10 years, 3 haven't been the best, right? So 7 out of 10 years. And I think when you have these dips, you got to remember, it's a cycle. And so the question becomes, how do you claw your way out of the cycle? Now, that means for us, when I went back to analyze my business, we were hyper dependent on large enterprise businesses, right? So we had to diversify to maybe go to middle market customers, lower middle market customers in that point. Because the goal is, and I'll learn this from a coach, your job as an owner and as an operator of your business is make it through the cycle. You're going to swing back up. So diversify your mix in terms of customers. We went hyper-local. And then we brought in someone, spring intern, just to reinvigorate us. And that was the focus as a whole.
What's been frustrating in 2026 in growing your business?
Here's what I'll say. Because of last year from a comparative basis, I haven't faced frustration yet because I know from last year, look, those 3 periods that I mentioned, reflect on them.
And what metrics are you most focused on improving at Reframe?
So, I had someone tell me, and I had to, we operate from, full funnel. I'm old school. The funnel is alive. It's not going anywhere. So for us, going into Q1 really is about going back to revisit customers that we would have worked with before, prospecting, getting a pulse in terms of how people are anticipating what the year is going to be like. So that's not a hard KPI. And so going into Q2, we really go through, I keep a spreadsheet in terms of our pipeline. Given the revenue trajectory that we want to hit, we truly understand in terms of how many impressions do we need to get to. From those impressions, how many people can we get to schedule a meeting? And of those meetings, how many are we able to close? But typically we lead with the white paper. The white paper, a little bit of breaking news. We really do have a strong belief in thought leadership. So in 2017, I wrote a white paper called The State of the Total Market Industry Report. It was, innovation at that time. I've yet to run into anybody or any brand that didn't want to grow. Now my job is to figure out how to uncover that opportunity. And I think the way that we approach our businesses and leading with the value creation piece is really where the opportunity lies. And we'll kick it off. We're going to, the impressions piece, webinar.
Where do you want to be 6 or 12 months from now, Jeffrey, with Reframe?
For us, not public, but, we have a stealth idea in terms of helping these brands become even more hyper focus as it relates to using our growth playbooks, both internal and externally. And that's something that, within the next, let's say 12 to 18 months, we want to launch. So think about new co, still going to keep old co, but really you think about the business that you're in. There is this thing called a great wealth transformation. And so as you have even more disbursement of capital, how do you develop bespoke opportunities for us, meaning Reframe, to provide those opportunities for those folks within that market space rather?
If you had a magic wand to fix just one thing in your business, Jeffrey, that's holding you back or slowing you down, what would that one thing be?
I mean, if I had a magic wand within my business, I think in 17, we got a customer that said, "Hey, can this work for our employees?" Being the entrepreneur I am, I said, "Absolutely." And, it was all centered around you want more people, more resources. But I think when you bootstrap, you have the right amount of resources that you need to get you to that next stage of growth. And so that's part of the reason when you say the next 12 to 18 months. I think what we've developed at Reframe is a macro framework for what we know and have validated. The way that brands and businesses approach the marketplace is still a very old and dated, antiquated approach. And so before you get to the outcome of artificial intelligence, you have to transform your organization internally. And most organizations start outside in when they actually should start inside out. And so when you step back from that, you pause. When you think about the first corporate certificate, 1930s. And so before we get to the outcomes that we think we're going to reach as a country and as an industry, there's still a lot of growth that's going to happen from the inside out through transformation. And so we're going to keep the old code in terms of Reframe consulting services, but there's something else that we have in our path that I think is even going to be just as exciting, if not more, in terms of how do we take these playbooks that we've developed for Fortune 500 companies and bring it down to the middle.
So if you had a magic wand to fix one thing that's kind of holding you back from accelerating, let's say from 12 months to 2 months, what would that be?
Identifying partners that may want to consider us as an investment partner. So pipeline, access, visibility to more brands and businesses that want to think about growth acceleration as a partner, not as a supplier per se, if that makes sense. Yeah. I mean, what we ultimately want to do is look to acquire businesses that, may be looking not to necessarily exit, but more or less, look at our track record. Look at what we've been able to do for Verizon, Wyndham, Prudential, United, Restaurant Associates, in the consumer services space. Because I think given the track record and experience that we have, we can help you get there.
And Jeffrey, if there's a listener out there that's like, I want to work with you, what's the best way to connect?
Best way to connect. Easiest way is you can email me, Jeffrey, Jeffrey, at reframe.com, or go to our website, getreframe.com, and contact us.
And Jeffrey, in closing, what's one piece of advice that you would give to them?
The one piece of advice I would give, yes, between the ages of 20 and 30, yes, you can go out and raise money. Yes, maybe you crash out the first one, you start the second or third one. Still investable. But what I would challenge, founders today is how do you build a business profitably, bootstrap, and really create value that's long lasting. I believe that America would not be in a place that it is if, you think about the institutions of corporations that have been built. It's all because they had customers. And they built a solid business. So that's the one thing. And the last thing I'll say to that point, we made it to the finals of Y Combinator. We're in the room waiting for that 10-minute pitch. And I could not believe how many founders there we're surprised that we have revenue. I'm like, oh my God, what is going on generationally where you build a business based on revenue? How are you able to get customers at the end of the day? So that would be my one piece of advice. Yes, you can build your deck. You can get the 1,000 list of investors. You can go out and pitch the deck. The rubber meets the road is, can you actually get customers? So go get customers would be my first piece of advice.
Yeah, I love that piece of advice. Thank you so much again, Jeffrey, for your time and joining us and sharing your insights with our community today.